The Fifth Dimension. By J. J. Goldstein. Chapter 3. The Book of Practice. On Actors, Practitioners, and Manipulators. The fifth dimension bequeathed unto us actors upon the stage of existence, practitioners of the spiritual, and wielders of social influence. Human beings assume roles in a grand theatricality, wherein their lives, veiled behind masks, unfurl in performances scarcely distinguishable from the storyboard of written composition. The sophists, the philosophers, and the literati, they are the architects of education, the artisans of thought systems, and the crafters of mechanical transcriptions of cogitation onto the artifacts of man's devising, be it paper, parchment, or magnetic filaments, entities designated for the purpose of storage, conveyance, and dissemination. Once, the contents thus encapsulated were dubbed knowledge, yet, of late, we find ourselves want to term them information. Neither knowledge nor information attains a reality within the realm of sensory perception, but instead manifests as representations of personages, notions, or occurrences external to the raw data. We gaze upon lifeless arboreal remnants of Hamlet, a paper, not the vivid visage of living Hamlet, the prince. Plato, in his wisdom, attributed all abstract distinctions to the parallel domains of ideas, mirroring the sensory world, recognizing it as a mere etching upon the dimension of differentiation. A physical sensibility thus pertains to the corporeal sphere, the realm of objectivity, while a rational sensibility bespeaks the domain of ideation, the ethereal sanctuary of ideals. Space, in its corporeal manifestation, is constrained, very constrained, it is finite, yet, ideas, they burgeon forth in ceaseless profusion, an infinity of potentialities. The roles of mankind have burgeoned, and with them, education, systems of thought, and mechanical expressions of cogitation have expanded in tandem. The crux of the matter lies in gauging the extent of this expansion. The information, the realm of ideas, must supersede the physical world. This stands as the sole conceivable induction. The proof lies ensconced in the continuum of ideas that outlasts mortal existence. The fifth dimension resides beyond the human sphere, yet humanity exists as a beneficiary, subsisting parasitically upon its boundless expanse. Humanity, or more aptly, the collective expression of humanity, constitutes a manifestation of the fifth dimension. All differentiation, a contrived demarcation, lacks inherent causality, as it arises from intentionality, primed for eliciting a responsive reaction. Differentiation is, at its core, relational, a distinction between this and not that. Naturalists brand it as ideas, socialists as situations, scientists as pseudo. Each new persuasion assumes a collective of practitioners, participating in the theater of differentiation, manipulating within the fifth dimension. Be it King Solomon or Luther King, none imperatively eclipses life in their absence from collective remembrance. Ramses II, Queen Cleopatra, the potent European Kaisers, all harbored aspirations of being immortalized as pure information, thus enslaving legions of practitioners in the creation of content for artificial memory devices, spatial abodes, sepulchres, architectural marvels, titles and ceremonies, written records, public forums, and festive commemorations. This cognizance guides all manipulators, who, in their stratagem, engage in dual endeavors, engendering maximal differentiation, distance, and distinctiveness while thwarting others from pursuing parallel pursuits. This orchestration crystallizes in the hierarchical structure of humanity, the social stratification, the anointment of chosen ones, the juridical disparities, the political order, the bureaucratic apparatuses, all emblematic of narcissistic historiographers. Aristotle, Sima Qian, Leibniz, Hume, Voltaire, and the myriad other fabrications of superhuman making, from laws and tribunals to incarcerations, all serve to constrain the potentially other creatives from propounding their own, competing realities. Nations, dictionaries, and the sciences are but a few illustrations of the fetters imposed upon us, designed to hinder, exclude, and impede our progress. The preeminent practitioners are those who attain self-awareness. In their emancipation from constraints, they engender untruths, concoct falsehoods, and manipulate circumstances to their advantage. They emerge as the chroniclers of narratives, the purveyors of fiction, the progenitors of movements, the artisans of imagination. Nothing they enunciate, enact, or feign attains the rubric of actuality. They stand nearly on par with the superlative creators who endure lifespans of 3 centuries, speak 1,000 tongues, and pen 1,400 self-referential, biographical tomes. Alas, the zenith of the super-creators remains unreached. Contemplated from the vantage of the 5th dimension, the dimensions of space and time appear limiting, restrictive. Human corporeal vessels function as mnemonic instruments, processing differentiation as information, either temporarily stored within their cerebral recesses or permanently inscribed onto tangible contrivances. Inches, squares, rivers, mountains, trees, all are conscripted as mnemonic aids, marking the phantasmagoric domain of the master creators. This land is ours. The human vessel, the repository of information, stands as a rudimentary solution to the profusion of creations germinating within the 5th dimension. In due course, replicators and machines will supplant them. The industrial-scale production of parallel worlds and even remote universes now unfolds in tandem with the aid of machines and supercomputers. The visage of a metropolis eclipses the actuality of any metropolis. The realm of imagination supersedes Plato's cavernous abode. The superlative creators held their assistants, human vessels of conveyance, in low esteem. With the advent of digital mechanisms for mining reality, their disdain for analog, primitive humanity has only deepened. The amassing of millennia of rapport often proves necessary to efface the concoctions of the master creators, for a multitude of humans persist in reiterating and referencing them, thereby sustaining an unreality that, within the 5th dimension, was even less likely than chance, absent the servitude of mindless disseminators. In the grand schema, only differentiation holds sway. Truth, facts, and arguments assume a distinct guise. They serve as vexatious markers for the 4-dimensional denizens ensconced within their confines. The cultivation of truth-seekers, fact-checkers, and the querulous proves propitious for the 5th dimension, never the objective world. This eluded the purview of evolutionists, ensnaring them in their primordial simplicity in their insistence upon the palpable, 4-dimensional reality. What is, is. What is not deceased, persisted. What persisted, triumphed. Whereas the 5-dimensional creator avers, what I forge, exists, triumphs. When Democritus chances upon a pebble, it takes on a certain significance. However, when he subsequently encounters 1,000 pebbles, no individual pebble retains its distinct import. In our world, there exist 20,000 philosophical projects, along with 86 million specious cults, and none among them attains a true essence or significance. There exist another 670 million ideas unbeknownst to us. What unites them all is their essential transience. This arises from their origin in a distinct dimension, the non-judgmental dimension, characterized by multi-all and everythingness. The nihilist retorted, what exists is in relation, relative to what I know and do not know. To him, nobody possessing greater knowledge finds solace in happiness. Quite the contrary, the eminent Shuren, the Arhats, the prophets, all understood that less equated to more, that ignorance surpassed enlightenment, that the tales of utmost absurdity and simplicity garnered the masses, and that the suppression of dissenters assured tranquility. All sages were relationists, a designation the missionaries decried as moral despots, for the construction of order from the void amounts to dominion over others, which, in their view, is beneficial to the recluse. Evil, they posit, lies in solitary self-imposition. The institutions of learning bear resemblance to prisons, which in turn mirror barracks. Liberty isn't prescribed for humans, they are meant to subsist in captivity. Civilization begets culture, not the reverse. One may declare vaccination perilous, yet one may not refuse it. One may assert sedition lacks criminality, yet one may not evade the prison sentence. Plants remain immobile, animals lack the capacity for reason, and humans find themselves incapable of transcendence. Yet plants employ the winds for dispersion, animals are amenable to training, and humans possess the potential to surpass reality. They may choose to disavow the existence of Abraham, but they cannot evade the children of Abraham. This is why our proprietors confine us to barracks, to prisons, to schools. They surveil us, control us ceaselessly, dictate our actions, dictating what, when, and where we enact them. One cannot graduate from a preeminent American institution of learning without meeting Kissinger, Huntington, and Fukuyama, despite never having encountered them in the flesh. Despite their manifest corruption and dearth of originality. This venture amounts to yet another enterprise in world building, this time by the Americans. The French had their Sartre, de Beauvoir, and Derrida. The English boasted their Russell, Kipling, and Tolkien, while the Germans held up Leibniz, Weber, and Marx. These public personas, whom I refer to as personas prime, manifest on an industrial scale, with legions of curators, employees, and the omnipotent state backing their creation. The eminent German poet Goethe, a veritable construct of modern cultural epic, could count upon the entire German Empire as his publishing house. And thus, this introverted feminine figure was molded into a scientist, a novelist, a playwright, musician, a professor, a pedagogue, a polyglot, and a progenitor, all attributes amplified to celestial heights. Thereafter, every German aspired to ascend to the mantle of the nation's placatory god-teacher for all of humanity. This new national pastime engendered the likes of Hegel, Nietzsche, and perhaps Brecht. All of this amounts to unadulterated fabrication. They pilfer here, paraphrase there, preside over teams and chambers of editors, run a production house, conjure their best ideas on the toilet, and subsequently edit them down for consumption by fifth graders. We now comprehend how they contrived the fabricators of culture, courtesy of hindsight, for we now replicate what they once fabricated through comic books, writing workshops, and alternative publishers. In a few years, we will no longer require a René Descartes to propose that life might be a dream encased in a box, nor a Leonardo da Vinci to depict some random patron's spouse, Lisa Gherardini. We shall manufacture a talking meme ex nihilo, just as we do with boy bands, advertisements, and consent. Our so-called universities are contingent upon subjugation and compulsion. 90% of their clientele are practitioners, not erudite masters. Students are kept destitute, ensnared in confinement, beleaguered by idolatry of long-deceased charlatans. These institutions are purpose-built, man-made edifices tasked with administering and guarding the thresholds to the fifth dimension. They represent the new canon or lore of the make-believe game in which we involuntarily partake. Those who abstain from their game await the freedom missiles, bombs, and prosecutors dispatched by Imperial America. The slave man is entirely four-dimensional, physical, scientific, malleable material, while the creator man is five-dimensional, spiritual, unscientific, and impractical. All regulations, certifications, and testing amount to a form of human husbandry. A free individual should refuse to partake in this tyranny. A person who is truly free has the capacity to become whatever they so desire, embodying the ethos of "as a man thinketh." When someone endeavors to dictate what you must do or be, it is a clear sign of abuse. The exalted creators, perpetually ensconced within a cloistered enclave, delineate the regulations, certifications, and tests for the inarticulate base of humanity, molding their histories, myths, religions, and beliefs to serve the interests of their masters, not their own. This assertion can be readily validated by examining any history book, textbook, news narrative, or retrospective explanation a generation or two hence. Absent coercion, one often encounters sheer absurdity, unabashed deceit, and, on occasion, outright mind-altering manipulation. All education bears the imprint of its educator's vanity. This is why individuals hardly miss out if they fail to peruse, for instance, Mosey's treatise on utilitarianism, Dante's portrayal of the Inferno, Howard Zinn's recounting of the history of the United States, or any other work of quack and questionable provenance. The eminent Plato serves as an exemplary case in point. His mentor, Socrates, committed nothing to writing, thus Plato confabulated the Socrates' dialogues. However, nothing that Plato purportedly wrote can be unequivocally attributed to him either, given his band of fellow philosophers and the didactic nature of his school. This leads one to contemplate whether at the cradle of Western society might have been an early pen-and-paper role-playing party. It transpires that none among the Greeks, the English, or the Americans can lay claim to existence absent this cultural construct we label Greece, England, or America. If the masters apprehend this functionality, they probably also possess the means and the will to fabricate myriad fictional Greeces, Englands, or Americas, ensnaring us in their confinements, such that we are left with no choice but to partake in their unfathomable world-building charade. Only those who demonstrate utility to the super-creators are granted the privilege of detachment, enabling them to freely navigate the fifth dimension, a realm we designate as court actors, accredited practitioners, and affirmative manipulators. These supervised personae assume the roles of our ersatz heroes, fabricated leaders, and counterfeit martyrs. The spurious idols, simulated role models, and feigned inventors were all artfully constructed. This much is evident, for Rockefeller never personally excavated oil, Mark Twain never traversed 1,000 cities, Thomas Edison contributed nothing to invention, and Albert Einstein's renown is bound up with his Jewish heritage. They are lauded for their entire eras or professions, a preposterous and audacious masquerade, in my humble opinion. In epochs preceding our subjugation by psychopathic overlords, our forebears, at the very least, had the courtesy to attribute monumental ideas to deities, demigods, and mythic figures such as one-eyed Odin, King Zeus, Heracles the milkman, or the enchanter Merlin. Yet, in time, a particular tribe arrived, settling within Europe, and boldly declared, "We shall seize control of this frivolous board game." For these artificially conceived personages enacting live role-playing scenarios, the constraints were loosened. Consequently, they evolved into universal fictions. Were we to instruct a young boy that Hesse was the Buddha of mankind, then dispatch him to the far reaches of the galaxies, he would assuredly convey to the galactic empire that Hesse was the god of humanity, thereby establishing Hesse as the actuality of the galaxy. Such is the potency of the fifth dimension, and that of selected individuals, our paramount psychers. And here I have proclaimed it, bereft of any exigency for traversing through spatial or temporal dimensions, it simply is, as I affirm it. Such is the transcendental authority of our remove. What the oppressed decry as falsehood, fabrication, injustice, corruption, mendacity in the press, despots, propaganda, or mass media, is, in reality, the exclusive and meaningful agency enacted upon a populace of lesser beings plagued by dysfunction. Only a minuscule fraction among us are granted the liberty to engage in endeavors that all of us ought to be undertaking. The fifth dimension stands as the dimension that rendered man first conceivable.